This presentation is about university productivity and cost efficiency and draws data from the Australian higher education sector. The Research and Education Efficiency Frontier Index, or REEF Index, is a diagnostic and evaluative tool useful for the management of institutions in the higher education sector. This is an example of the REEF Index graph, where across the horizontal axis we measure education productivity. A move to the right is an increase. The vertical axis shows research productivity. A move up is an increase in productivity. This example is from public information and is the University of Sydney from 2001 to 2018. Let's look a little closer. You can see from the period through to 2008 there was an increase in research productivity, but a clear decline in education productivity. This was arrested in 2008, and there was an increase in both education and research productivity through up until 2014. From 2015, for several years, there was neither significant growth in education or in research productivity. The REEF Index recognises that research and education is a jointly supplied set of outputs within universities, and it is agnostic as to the mix of research and education an individual university might make. It is evidence-based using econometrics and other quantitative techniques, and it is not abstract or theoretical and is based on real-world data in the Australian sector. The examples used here are, for commercial and client confidentiality reasons, historical, anonymised, or hypothetical. Now let's look at the structure and characteristics of the REEF Index and the REEF Index graph. In the REEF Index, the vertical axis relates to research productivity, and in the base measure is the number of unique authored publications per $1 million of expenditure. By unique authored publications, we mean that if, for example, a paper has 2 authors, then that counts as 0.5 of a publication per author and affiliated institution. This can be varied depending on the needs of the client and can be weighted, for example, in respect of research quality or impact. The horizontal axis is the measure for education, and this is equivalent full-time students taught per $1 million. Here is the REEF Index graph for a particular year showing the 37 major public universities in Australia across the 2 dimensions of education and research. And here is the efficiency frontier, and this is determined by reference to the exemplar institutions, those that have the highest level of productivity. In this particular year, 4 institutions defined the efficiency frontier, with the others being either underneath or to the left of that frontier. For this year, the efficiency frontier was defined by the University of New South Wales, the University of Wollongong, RMIT and Victoria University, with differing levels of education or research intensity. Now let's take a closer look. Let's look at a university that is close to the frontier but not quite on it. We can measure the extent of productivity relative to the frontier. This particular university had a REEF Index score of 0.92 or 8% from the efficiency frontier. The measures used are, for research, unique authored publications. And by unique authored, we mean if there are 2 authors for a paper, then that would count as 1/2 of a publication for the author and for the affiliated university. And for education, it is measured as equivalent full-time student load. The key input variable is university expenditure, corrected for non-academic expenses such as investment losses. We can also measure the efficiency and productivity by just calibrating it relative to academic staff resources used. There are a variety of applications of the REEF Index. One can compare a university with others in the sector or the frontier as demonstrated before. One can compare a university with like institutions. You can compare a university over time to see its progress. You can use the REEF Index to evaluate the leadership of the university. And you can also use it to evaluate the productivity and efficiency within the university. You can compare academic units with non-academic units within the university to help target and enhance cost efficiency. Let's take some of these. Let's look at individual university evaluation. This is where one compares the university with itself over time. The analysis here involves a number of universities for various years ending in 2016. The Higher Education Research Group has more contemporary data. Let's take this anonymised university we'll call University B. You can see it here plotted against the REEF Index graph over the period 2001 to 2016. Here's the same data close up. You can see that after about 2008, the trajectory of this university's productivity growth was upwards and to the right. That is to say, there was some improvement in education and a very significant improvement in research productivity. This was the University of New South Wales. Let's take another anonymised university. We'll call this one University D. You can see that the period from 2008 to 2011 was positive, with an increase both in education and in particular research productivity. But the period between 2011 and 2012 was clearly negative, both for research and for education. And then there were mixed results thereafter. But by the time we get to 2016, the university is still not as productive as it was in 2011. One can use the REEF Index to evaluate strategic choices. Many universities in Australia have chosen to increase research productivity. The REEF Index can be used to assess whether that was successful or otherwise. The example here will make University E. In this anonymised example, we can see the data from 2008 to 2016. Going straight up would emphasize research productivity. Going straight across to the right would emphasize education productivity. This particular university, between 2008 and 2013, had a balance between education and research productivity. From 2013 to 14, it emphasised strongly research and continued to emphasise research, but the cost was a reduction in education productivity. The REEF Index can be used to assess university leadership, particularly where there's a new Vice-Chancellor and the association between that change of leadership and subsequent productivity growth. Let's look at another anonymised example. We'll call this University M. A new Vice-Chancellor arrived in 2007 and departed about a decade later. One can observe the productivity that occurred after the appointment was taken up. Between 2007 and 11, there was significant education productivity growth. A change of strategy, and this was associated with a decline in productivity between 2011 and 12, but thereafter there was very strong research productivity growth, ending in 2016. This is the University of Canberra. You can also use the REEF Index to compare productivity and efficiency within a university given internal data. In this example, we'll call University P. There are 7 faculties. Faculty A, B, C and D make up the internal university efficiency frontier. Some are stronger with research productivity, others stronger with education productivity. 3 other faculties do not fall on the efficiency frontier. They are faculties X, Y and Z. Let's look a little closer at this example. We see faculty Z is highly education intensive, but to get to the efficiency frontier within this university, they would need to support additional enhancement of educational productivity. To get to the efficiency frontier for faculty Y, it would not be just enhancing education productivity, but a combination of both research and education to help support the overall university's productivity achievement. This is an important aspect of the REEF Index because it provides evidence-based solutions which are not one-size-fits-all. Some concluding remarks. The REEF Index can be used in multiple ways. The same institution over time, comparing the university with the efficiency frontier, comparing it with other like institutions, or within the university to find cost efficiencies. The REEF Index is both diagnostic and evaluative. An explainer video can be found on the website. The REEF Index helping build productivity and cost efficiency.